Jorge, that's the thing I love about accessories. You can dress up the most boring top. I mean, I've worn this thing at least a dozen. Oh, hey! Hi, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of Canada's Drag Race, Season 1, Episode 7. And before I get started, I just want to send a couple of shout-outs to some people. My first one is, and I'm going to say this, I'm sure I'm going to say this wrong, but Do Ishikawa. I hope that's how you say it. I just call you Do, you're a big Do. Do broke their foot last week. Who breaks their foot? Do? What are you doing to yourself? Take some care, sweetie, seriously. I hope you're convalescing well, and I hope you have lots of people who are able to, get you things. Like fetcher monkeys. But don't call them that or they'll stop doing it. I'm so serious. Also, I want to send a shout out to Leon Plummaker. I'm so sorry. I told everyone he's from New Orleans. He's not. He's from Portland, Oregon. And I don't know why I thought you were from New Orleans, Leon. I don't know why. I'm clearly having a stroke. I know that there are fingerdoers out there from New Orleans, and hello to all of you. I hope that you're not having too bad a time of it. But Leon, I would like to say, just a little while ago, sent me a note saying that he had been shopping in downtown Oregon, and he got stopped by one of those anonymous police. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know, because this is Canada. We don't have that, so I've been told, although the G5 Summit was another thing altogether. But that said, but Leon was in his own town and got stopped by one of these people, just checking where he was going, why he was out and doing stuff. And what a shocker. I mean, God bless. And Leon was just out, getting some stuff, nothing important, nothing dire, just out for, a change of scenery. And who needs that kind of thing? Leon, I hope you're well. I hope that you've been out and about since and had no trouble. And thanks again for all your support. Shut your face, seriously. And then finally, I just want to send out a little shout out to Diana Devi. She is on YouTube. She left a message on YouTube last week, and she was comparing JBC, Jeffrey Boyer Chapman, to Santino Rice, like he was going to be the new Santino Rice. And it's so funny because I was thinking, well, I think he wants to make himself the Simon Cowell, but I think that's too dated a reference, and I think that although Santino Rice is an older reference for a lot of people, over 5 years, over 8 years now since he's been on the show. It's still more current, I think, than Simon Cowell. Didn't he just hurt himself riding a bike? Seriously. Of course, this brings me to this week's Tipper Do's, and I want to send out a huge thank you to Jay Bowman, who I think is, as of taping right now, just the only Tipper Do this week, and I really appreciate it, Jay. Thank you so much. Also, I want to send a shout out to my Redbubble model of the week, which is Siatha Knight. Look at her. I guess she felt she was being outdone by Damone Lestrange last week, so here's Siatha in a Jorge Drink Me face mask, looking gorgeous. Siatha's the reason that I've been changing my makeup game, and I always send a shout out to her, but I actually have a Get Ready With Me coming up very shortly, and you can see what she's created. I'm so serious. So Siatha Knight, thanks for your support. God bless you. Now, it's time for the review. Jorge, drink me. Ooh, look at this. What is this? Fingerdoo? What is that? What we're calling them? A margarita. I don't know. This is basically Fresca and tequila. It's a lovely little. I just call it the lazy person's margarita. Oh, I took 2 extra sips. It's so good. All right, so let's get to it. So, after the Queen said goodbye to Boa, Ilona proved to me why she doesn't deserve to be Canada's drag superstar, because she called Rita Baga a senior citizen and then dismissed any relevance or expertise that she might have had to share. Seriously. I find it so funny that somebody who complains about being marginalized and ignored for whatever they're being marginalized and ignored for is so quick to do the exact same thing to somebody else. Shame on you, Ilona. Of course, Lemon was still hurting over the fact that most of the other queens had picked her to be the next queen to go home. But then, two of the queens she felt gave her the hardest time about it landed in the bottom. So, karma. Plus, none of the reasons the queens gave as to why they picked her had anything to do with her drag. Something that Rita Baga was also considering when Priyanka just up and asked her, "Are you surprised you won?" What? No congratulations? Of course, this speaks volumes as to how the other queens were feeling about the judges' decision-making. Clearly, they were all shocked that Rita won. But in her defense, Rita just quoted what the judges said and all in all was okay with it. Of course she was. She won. Someone who would have felt the same way if she had won was Scarlett Bobo, but she didn't, so she had a gob on her about it. Now, I need to say this about Scarlett Bobo. She is a spectacular queen. She's a magnetic performer. She might not be everybody's cup of tea, but she has been doing drag for 10 years or so. And in those years, she has not only developed a fan base that support and love her and are used to what she's doing, but she's also perfected her craft and become an expert at the things she's good at. Now she's in an environment where her support circle is removed and she's being asked to do things she's not normally doing under a time restraint. Well, if that's not a reason enough to have a gob on you, well, I just don't know what is. Of course, I think Priyanka hit it on the head because there's been complaints. Bobo isn't worried. She's mad she hasn't won a challenge. And I'll say to you right here and now, she doesn't win one soon, lives may be lost. Ilona didn't care either way because if the emotions aren't hers, clearly they're not worth validating. Kind of a tree falls in the forest kind of thing. The next day in the workroom, Lemon was more determined than ever to prove to the queens that she deserved to be there. And after a glamour-referenced video from RuPaul, we got a break from old bus pants because Brooklyn Heights was there with this week's Maxi Challenge. Maxi Challenge. Did I just not do a shout out last week about how I was thrilled they weren't skipping the minis? Oh well, something else for the fans to complain about. I immediately understood why there was no mini this week because the Maxi Challenge was a 3-part pageant. The Miss Loose Jaw pageant, to be precise. But this wasn't a pageant about beauty. No. This was a pageant about how well the queens would be able to bring their assigned characters to life in front of a live audience. And of course, world peace. Because Rita was last week's winner, she got to assign the characters to the queens. She started off by picking her favorite, which was Ms. Match, a hopeless online romantic, hashtag. And then, the next character was Ms. Behaving, the town bicycle, and there was a bit of a fight over who would get her. There always is, isn't there? But in the end, pun intended, it was Jimbo, much to Scarlett Bobo's chagrin. I think what also rubbed a bit of salt into the wound for Bobo was that she was more or less just given misinformed, the town know-it-all most. So clearly, Bobo wasn't starting out happy. Bless. As for the rest of the queens, there weren't any fights. Lemon got Ms. Fitz, a bratty pageant princess. Ilona got Ms. Arabol, an Eeyore, and for those of you who are too young to have read Winnie the Pooh, an Eeyore is a sad sack donkey. Typecasting? And Priyanka took Miss Demeanor like a champ. Well, she had to because that's all that was left. Right away, the queens got down to work developing their characters. Priyanka wasted a whole bunch of time trying to put roots onto a wig when what she really should have been doing was putting some life into her character. Seriously. Lemon wore out everyone's last nerves and the mirrors working on her little Ms. Pageant Queen, but truth be told, this wasn't a big stretch for her. Ilona was very definite about the finer points of her character, but as far as the Eeyore went, she totally missed the mark. Read a book, Ilona. Seriously. And then Brooklyn Heights arrived to check on the Queen's progress. His first stop was with Lemon, who called Brooklyn Angel. During her visit, Brooklyn asked Lemon how she was doing after last week's Hate Fest. And then they both bonded over their respective casts not liking them because they were so talented. Yeah, that's why. Priyanka said she was excited to prove herself in an improv challenge because she bit the last one so hard. Rita was next, and she seemed to have a handle on who her character was and what she was going to do. Because, as the mother of the House of Baga, she knows how to deliver. Plus, she's Rita Baga. Next on Brooklyn's dance card was Scarlett Bobo, who was having all sorts of feels over not winning a Maxi challenge yet. But Brooklyn pointed out to her that she also hadn't been in the bottom yet either. Of course, Rita and Jimbo haven't been in the bottom either. So what's your point, Brooke? I'm just glad that Brooklyn reminded Ilona, no matter how she played Miss Arable, to make her funny and not all one note before she started to talk to Ilona about being too spirited and gender fluid. Because, no offense, but the minute it all becomes about Ilona, well, she forgets what she's doing or why she's in a room at all. Seriously. Last on Brooklyn's dance card was Jimbo, who was playing Ye Old Town Pump, which was also my drag queen name in high school. Jimbo told Brooklyn that her background in theater made this challenge an easy get for her. Fingerdoos crossed, and justice for Jimbo. Seriously. Before Brooklyn toddled off, she told all the queens that this week's guest host was indie pop singer Ali X, who I've never heard of, but as a Canadian, I was super excited to get to know. Seriously. And then it was time for the Miss Loose Jaw pageant with smarmy TV host JBC, who, unfortunately, because he's been smarmy most of the season, just came off as annoying again. And you can't have a pageant without celebrity guest judges, so because this wasn't a real pageant, they got Snake from Degrassi, Squirrel Friend Tracy Melchor, and Guinness Book of Records world holder for oldest working drag queen in North America, Michelle DeBerry, who I think a lot of people felt was color commentating throughout the evening, but no, she actually thinks she's whispering. Right off the top, I have to say, I totally didn't recognize Rita Baga as Ms. Match. I thought she looked fantastic. My only complaint was I wish that her bodysuit had just been a little tighter. Priyanka was okay, but as an expecting Ms. Demeanor, there was more life going on in her lady oven than there was on her face. Just saying. Jimbo as Ms. Behaven was the most luscious we've seen her yet. And by luscious, I mean big boobs. Ilona's Ms. Arable was one note, just as Brooklyn had warned her not to be. One long, boring note. And Bobo's misinformed was hard to understand, but then those people usually are. And Lemon was adorable in that I don't mean it kind of way. And then it was time for the talent portion of the show. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Ilona Verily was very proud at how uncomfortable she made the audience feel because she said that was her character's type of humor. Personally, I think she should look up the meaning of the word humor. The best thing about Priyanka's interpretive dance as Miss Demeanor was that it was interrupted by the birth of her baby. And then we all felt bad about that. Jimbo's animal calls were almost as funny as the names of the animals she was calling. I guess. I mean, I really couldn't take my eyes off her tits. Scarlett's bongos were pretty big too, but then they would have to be to make up for her lack of musicality. I think somebody needs to remind Scarlett that you don't rub a bongo. Beat it. I have to say, Lemon's choice to make Misfits talent mime wasn't just smart. It was hilarious. Her walking off the stage and hitting her head on a mime wall. Genius! Rita's talent as Misinformed was to wrap up her box in some bright pink paper. It was about as exciting as it sounds. The swimsuit portion of the show was next, and for the most part, everyone did well. Rita added flippers to her shoes, and Jimbo was able to shove her fist down her throat, but other than that, it was pretty much what you'd expect. The Q&A portion of the show was next. Rita started it off with all her bubbly hashtags, and then Priyanka killed the mood with her one-note lack of comedy. She's really got to stop telling people she's good at improv, seriously. As for Jimbo, I think she thought she was still doing the talent portion of the show because she started doing JBC's mic right there. in front of people. The only difference between Priyanka's one-note character and Ilona's one-note character was that Ilona's one-note character was louder. That's the only difference. The best thing about Bobo's answer to her question was the outfit she was wearing because, well, as for her answer, I didn't understand a word she was saying. Maybe that's a good thing. Lastly, the best thing about Lemon's A to her Q was that she ended it with world peace. Because before that, all that murder talk was starting to be a downer. And then it was time to announce the winner of the Miss Loose Jaw pageant, but there was a bit of a snag. Michelle DeBerry and the crown went MIA. Seriously, I think Michelle toddled off to the bathroom and got lost. She may still be there. You should send somebody to check. The next day was elimination day, and as the queens got ready, Bobo blew up on Ilona because somebody told somebody not to roll somebody's eyes at somebody, and then somebody got called fat. Oh wait, no, that was me. But either way, tensions were clearly high between Ilona and Scarlett, which makes me ask the one question, why were they sitting next to each other in the first place? Alls I know is the rest of the queens were loving it. So, to change the topic, the queens all started talking about Michelle DeBerry and her contribution to drag. As a founding member of the Great Imposters, it's true, Michelle and Rusty Ryan and the rest of the queens all would tour Eastern Canada, like to these small towns. They performed in legions, and people loved them. And I have to tell you, from a performer's point of view, to know that those men went out in a van with all of their drag and all of their tat to these small little towns where no one knew where they were, and performed, it speaks to their bravery, it speaks to their desire to perform, and it speaks to their ability to read a room and be the right performer for that room. So here's to Michelle DeBerry. Thank you so much for everything you've done. Seriously. Speaking of inspirations, Rita shared that one of her early inspirations for drag was Lady Bunny, because Rita used to be a bigger queen, and there were no bigger queens to look up to. This got Lemon talking about what it's been like for her as a dancer, because she spends the whole day in front of a mirror looking at herself and then correcting what's wrong. See? It ain't easy being pretty. And then it was time for the runway with guest host Ali X, and the category is Pageant Perfection. Ilona Verily was first, and she did not disappoint. She looked lovely in lavender, and that skirt fit her like a dream. It was so beautiful, it almost made me ignore that Betsy Ross wig on her head. Almost. Lemon's Little Miss Sunshine routine was adorable, but the highlight of her runway was her tap dancing. Nobody taps anymore. Brooklyn Heights and I had the same reaction when Rita Baga took the stage. I loved everything. I loved the wig. It was so Jamie Lee Curtis in True Lies. I love the gloves, because, well, I do. And I love that dress. Well, almost. The only thing wrong with that dress for me, and I know I'm nitpicking, was that in the mermaid tail of her dress, she had a hoop. Clearly you could see there was some kind of structure to keep the mermaid fin out, and she needed more than one. Just that one threw the whole thing off for me. But short of that, Priyanka looked great in her runway outfit as well. But I have to say, because we're nitpicking here, I felt that the draping that was going on this side of her body was heavy and forced. Heavy and Forced was the title of my autobiography. I also have to say, the only thing I liked about Jimbo's runway was her wig. I love a big old soup can curled wig like that. It's so 60s. It's so fun. But as for the rest of the dress, it just swallowed her up. I know there's a lot of people online that have compared Lemon's runway and Jimbo's, and how they both could get different critiques over a dress that swallows both of them up. But Lemon's stopped at her legs. You got a break from that envelopment of fabric. And it was very in keeping to a silhouette like a young girl would have, but exaggerated in a humorous way. With Jimbo's, it really, to me, looked like the way she was walking, the way it was moving, that she had literally draped pink velvet over, like, packing bags. You know those air bubbles, those bladders that they fill with air? Because it seemed to move on its own, which was really cool. And the fabric didn't look like it was being weighed down, like it was heavy. But it just, I don't know. There was just something of that whole dress up until here. And then the marabou on. You couldn't see anything from Jimbo. And I am just going to say this as well. I hated the jewelry coming from her eyes and out of her ears. It was just weird. Sorry about it. And then it was Scarlett Bobo's turn. And again, she's never looked more glamorous in her whole life. So 40s film noir with the cigarette and the flick and then that mink shrug that she just got rid of. And I thought for a minute there was that beautiful waterfall of fabric down her right leg that I thought was unnecessary because it was an add-on, like it was separate from the dress. But it just made the whole thing stunning. This was a fantastic runway for Bobo. Here's to you, Bobo. Way to glam it up. And then it was time for the judges' critiques. Ilona Verily went first, and for the most part, the judges agreed that her pageant character was one note and hard to watch. And Brooklyn had a laundry list of changes she would have made to Ilona's runway, including the wig. Well, at least we're in agreement there. Lemon fared much better, but then her performance in the pageant was much better, and the judges told her so. Plus, Ali X just loved her runway. So here's to Lemon. Rita failed to impress the judges with her pageant performance, but that dress! All was forgiven. Almost. Priyanka was more or less in the same boat as Ilona with her one-note, unfunny pageant performance, but she was another one who redeemed herself on that runway, even with that terrible posture. Jimbo more than impressed the judges with her performance in the pageant, but that runway dress, what a letdown. Justice for Jimbo. Scarlett Bobo was last, but certainly not least, and the judges loved her performance in the pageant and, of course, gagged over her fabulous 40s runway. So all in all, it was a good week to be Bobo. And then the queens all freaked off to the Untucked Lounge. Priyanka was feeling like an idiot for being in the bottom again and was starting to wonder if all of her years spent working in children's television were a waste and if she was even talented at all. Again, it needs to be said, children's television. Jimbo was all hung up over the fact that JBC said he wasn't glamorous. Not that he was less glamorous or glamorous in a different way, just not glamorous. I guess where Jimbo comes from, jewels pouring out of your eyes and ears is glamorous. I don't live in that place, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And then Rita went against her better judgment and asked Jimbo if she wanted to hear what she thought. The answer to that is always no. But that's not what Jimbo said. She said she wanted to hear it, which always translates to, I want to hear it if it's good. Well, what Rita had to say was far from good. She said that Jimbo looked old. And this is after Jimbo used those elastics to pull back his face. Well, as you can imagine, the rest of the conversation was full of love and support. And by love and support, I mean Jimbo called Rita a grandma who'd stuck her head in the toilet. I wonder what Jimbo would have said if she had said that she didn't want to hear what Rita thought. Seriously. And then the queens returned to the runway where it was announced that Lemon was this week's winner, much to Bobo's chagrin. Seriously. Look at her face. She didn't even move. She didn't even twitch. I think she ruptured a kidney holding it together. Seriously. And as expected, it was Ilona Verily and Priyanka who were the bottom two queens this week. And there couldn't have been two more different queens performing the same number. Ilona is very much a stand there and emote kind of queen. She commands the stage and gives it to you, whereas Priyanka is way more animated and not afraid to dip into comedy or the split. So when the music was done, it was no surprise to me that Priyanka was safe and that Ilona was the seventh queen to sashay away. Not before, though, she got a little secret surprise visit from Ali X herself. You know, I love it when celebrities do that. I wish they'd do it more. Seriously. Well, what do you think? As beautiful as Ilona was, it was her third time in the bottom. It's also Priyanka's second time in the bottom. Do you think there'll be a third? And if there is, could she be the next one to sashay away? What about Scarlett Bobo? How will she go on if she doesn't have somebody else to blame for her inability to snag a Maxi Challenge win? Well, all we can do is tune into Canada's Drag Race next week to see how it all falls out. And then when you're done, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Now, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to like this video, unless, of course, you didn't. And don't forget, if you want to support the channel, I have links down below. There are my PayPal tipper dues. There are my Patreoners, and there is merchandise available on Redbubble. I also want to take a moment to let you know, I teased this a couple of episodes ago, but Denise Cherneau from Holland has done these 4 stunning pen and ink drawings of yours truly. And they're all kind of burlesque themed, all kind of in states of undress, and they're just delicious. And Denise didn't want any money for them, and I felt kind of weird putting them on Redbubble and making money from them because I didn't do anything with them. So we decided to do a charity, and the best charity I could think of was one that would help globally. Because Denise is in Holland, I'm in Canada, I didn't want it to just help one area. So I went with the Rainbow Railroad. They are a Canadian charity that helps globally. They get people out of countries where it's illegal to be gay, where there are no laws against people abusing anyone's rights, whether you're trans, lesbian, gay, any of it. And we're so lucky in North America to have the freedom to be who we are and express ourselves the way we are. So I just thought, as somebody who's living with that kind of grace and blessing, it's almost ignorant to go through life and not want to at least try and give it to someone else. So this is what we're doing. It's in a collection on my Redbubble page. I'll put the link down below, but it's called the Rainbow Railroad. It's just called Rainbow Railroad, and the 4 ones are in there. And all of the proceeds, so any money I would get from Redbubble, like if I sell a t-shirt, I get $1 or $2, I don't know. But they say, here's your money for that sale. All of that money that I'll be getting from those sales will be going directly to the Rainbow Railroad. So what I'll do is I'll do updates. We've had a few sales so far, but when I get my money from Redbubble, I will deduct the stuff that goes to the Rainbow Railroad, and I'll be doing that payment through PayPal again from Wilma's site, so it'll all be done that way, and I'll keep y'all posted on how that goes. So again, thank you for your support, thank you for tuning in, and until next week, miss me. Seriously, oh, I love amazing.